The awakening, the world was dark. There was no sound, only a deep humming noise somewhere far away. Jack opened his eyes slowly. Everything around him was blurry and cold. He tried to move, but pain shot through his body like fire. He let out a small groan and stayed still. The floor was hard and metallic. Strange lights blinked on the walls. Jack's head pounded as he tried to remember where he was. He remembered a battle. He remembered running. He remembered an explosion. And then, nothing. With great effort, Jack pushed himself up on his elbows. His muscles screamed in protest. He looked down and saw he was still wearing his damaged armor, cracked and burnt in many places. Dried blood stained his arms. Some of it was his. Some of it was not. "Where am I?" he whispered. The room was small and strange. It looked like a prison cell made of steel and glass. One wall was broken, a crack running across it like a spider web. Cold air came through the crack, carrying a smell Jack did not recognize. Metal, smoke, and something sweet. He tried to stand, but his legs gave out. He fell back with a hard thud. Frustration burned inside him. He had survived the battle, but he was still trapped. Then he heard it. Soft footsteps, careful and light. Jack froze, every sense alert. Someone or something was coming. The door in front of him slid open with a soft hiss. Light flooded into the room, and Jack raised a hand to shield his eyes. A figure stood in the doorway, half hidden by the bright light. It was not human. Slowly, the figure stepped forward. Jack's heart pounded in his chest. It was a woman, but not like any woman he had ever seen. Her skin was a pale silver blue, smooth, and almost glowing. Her hair was long and dark, falling over her shoulders like a river of night. Her eyes were large and bright, glowing softly in the dim room. She wore a simple cloth dress, torn and dirty. Around her wrists were thin metal cuffs, connected by a short chain that rattled when she moved. Jack tried to speak, but his throat was dry. The woman knelt down in front of him. She bowed her head low, almost touching the ground. Then, in a soft, musical voice, she spoke. "I am yours, master," she said. Jack stared at her, stunned. For a moment he thought he had misunderstood her words. But no, she had spoken clearly. "What? What did you say?" he managed to ask. She raised her head slowly. Her eyes met his, full of sadness and something else. Something like hope. "You won the trial of blood," she said. "I am your reward." Jack shook his head. No, I don't own people." The woman looked confused. She tilted her head slightly like a curious bird. "It is the law of this world," she said. "You saved my life. Now my life belongs to you." Jack felt a cold weight settle on his chest. This was wrong. Everything about this was wrong. He was a soldier, a protector, not a master, not a slave owner. He pushed himself up, leaning against the wall for support. His body trembled with effort. "Listen," he said, his voice hard. "I don't care about your laws. You are free. You don't belong to me." The woman's face remained calm, but Jack saw a flicker of fear in her eyes. "If I leave you," she whispered, "I will die." Jack frowned. "What do you mean?" "This world? It is not safe," she said. "Many will hunt me. I am marked now. Only your protection can save me." Jack closed his eyes for a moment. He was tired. He was hurt. He wanted to go home. But he could not turn away from someone who needed help. That was not who he was. He opened his eyes and looked at her again. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lyra," she said. "Okay, Lyra," Jack said slowly. "We'll figure this out. Together." Lyra gave a small smile, the first real emotion Jack saw on her face. It was a sad smile, but it gave him a strange warmth inside his chest. He reached out a hand. After a moment, Lyra placed her small chained hands into his. "Come on," he said. "Let's get out of here." Together they stood up. Jack felt weak, but he would not show it. Lyra stood close to him, ready to help if he fell. They moved toward the broken door. Outside, the world waited. Strange, dangerous, unknown. Jack took a deep breath. This was not the end. It was only the beginning. The broken world. Jack and Lyra stepped out into the broken world. The sky above them was not blue. It was a deep, angry red, with heavy black clouds swirling slowly. Two suns hung low on the horizon, casting strange double shadows across the ground. The air smelled of burnt metal and something bitter. Jack limped forward, his legs weak but his mind sharp. Lyra stayed close, her silver blue skin almost glowing against the dark landscape. The chain around her wrist clinked softly with every step. The world outside was not like anything Jack had ever seen. The land was full of twisted metal, crashed ships, and broken machines. Huge towers of stone and steel leaned at odd angles, as if the earth itself had thrown them down in anger. Black trees with sharp claw-like branches grew between the ruins. It was a graveyard. Jack's training told him this place had seen war. Not a small battle, but a total destruction. Something terrible had happened here. What happened to this place? Jack asked, his voice low. Lyra looked up at the broken sky. Sadness filled her bright eyes. Long ago, this world was full of life, she said. Cities stood tall. People laughed and sang. Then the war came. The conquerors came. Who are they? Jack asked. Lyra hesitated. Fear flickered across her face. They are not from this galaxy, she whispered. They destroy. They take. They leave. Only death behind. Jack's fists tightened. He had seen war before, but the thought of a whole world dying like this, it made his stomach turn. They walked carefully through the ruins. Every sound made Jack's muscles tense. A creaking metal beam, a whisper of wind, the crunch of broken glass under their boots. Something was wrong. Jack felt it deep in his bones. We need to find shelter, he said. Somewhere safe. Lyra nodded. There is a place. Not far. An old command center. Maybe it still stands. They moved quickly, Jack pushing through the pain in his body. He could not afford to be weak now. Not here. Not with Lyra depending on him. As they moved, Jack noticed small signs of danger. Strange marks on the ground like deep claw scratches. Piles of bones, picked clean. Black stains on the walls that looked too much like dried blood. They were not alone. After what felt like hours, they reached a large building half buried in rubble. The entrance was cracked open, dark and silent inside. Jack raised his hand, signaling Lyra to stay back. He picked up a broken metal rod from the ground, his only weapon for now. He stepped inside first. The air inside was cooler. The walls were lined with dead screens and broken machines. Dust floated in the beams of red sunlight coming through the cracks. Clear, Jack said after a moment. Lyra slipped inside, her chains rattling softly. They found a small room at the back, where the walls were still strong. A few broken chairs and an old table were scattered around. It was not much, but it would do for now. Jack sat down heavily, his body aching. Lyra looked at him with worry. She moved closer, pulling something from a hidden pocket in her dress. It was a small vial filled with a glowing blue liquid. Drink this, she said, offering it. What is it? Jack asked, suspicious. Healing serum, she said. It will help your wounds. Jack hesitated for a moment, then took the vial and drank. The liquid was cold and tasted strange, but almost immediately, he felt a little strength return to his limbs. He gave her a small nod. Thanks. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the wind howl outside. Then Jack asked the question that had been burning in his mind. Lyra, why did they call it the trial of blood? What did I win? Lyra's hands trembled slightly. She looked down at her chained wrists. The trial of blood is a cruel tradition, she said softly. Captives are forced to fight, to survive. The Yaran winner earns ownership over others. It is a game to them. Jack's stomach twisted with disgust. He hated everything about this place. This world. He looked at Lyra carefully. How long were you a prisoner? A long time, she said. Years, maybe more. Time moves differently here. Jack wanted to ask more, but a sound stopped him cold. A low, metallic clicking noise echoed from outside the door. Jack's heart leapt into his throat. He raised the metal rod, motioning Lyra to stay silent. The clicking grew louder, closer. Jack moved to the door, peeking through a crack. His blood froze. Something moved in the darkness. A creature, tall and thin with metal arms and glowing red eyes. It moved slowly, sniffing the air, searching. It was a hunter. Jack pulled back quietly. He whispered to Lyra, "We're not safe here." "What do we do?" she asked, fear in her voice. Jack thought fast. He had no weapons, no armor, no backup. Just a broken rod and his training and Lyra. He looked at her, seeing the strength hidden beneath her fear. "We fight smart," he said. "We survive." He gripped the rod tighter. Outside, the hunter let out a sharp, inhuman screech. The broken world was waking up, and it was hungry. Enemies in the shadows. Jack pressed his back against the cold wall, breathing as quietly as he could. Lyra crouched beside him, her silver blue skin almost blending into the dark shadows. Outside the broken room, the hunter moved closer. Its red eyes cut through the gloom like twin lasers. The clicking sound of its metal claws scraping the ground made Jack's skin crawl. He gripped the metal rod tightly. It was a poor weapon against something like that, but he had fought worse with less. Jack studied the creature. It was tall, almost twice his height, with long arms ending in sharp, hook-like fingers. Its body was covered in scraps of armor, fused into its skin. Small tubes ran along its spine, pumping dark liquid through its body. It was not alive. It was not dead. It was something in between. Lyra whispered, "Hunter drones, built to kill. They never stop." Jack nodded. They had to move fast. If they waited, more would come, and they would not survive a second attack. He scanned the room quickly. One idea formed in his mind. A bad idea, but maybe their only chance. "Stay low," he whispered to Lyra. "Wait for my signal." Before she could argue, Jack moved. He picked up a chunk of broken metal from the floor and threw it across the hall. It hit the wall with a loud clang. The hunter snapped its head toward the noise and let out a sharp screech. It moved with terrifying speed, racing toward the sound. Jack grabbed Lyra's hand and pulled her through the opposite door. They ran. The broken building shook under their feet. Jack could hear the hunter crashing through walls behind them, smashing everything in its path. They sprinted down a narrow hallway filled with broken wires and shattered screens. Sharp metal edges tore at Jack's clothes and skin, but he didn't stop. Up ahead, he saw a large hole in the wall, leading out into the open ruins. "There!" he shouted. They burst out into the open air, the red sky spinning above them. Jack stumbled but kept moving. Lyra ran beside him, fast and light, her chains clinking with every step. The hunter came through the wall behind them, roaring in anger. Jack spotted a fallen tower nearby, its top half hanging low over the ground like a bridge. "Under there," he said. They dived into the shadow of the broken tower, crawling through the wreckage. Jack's heart pounded. Every muscle in his body screamed for rest, but he forced himself forward. The hunter followed, slower now, sniffing the air with mechanical sensors. It was hunting them not by sight, but by smell and heat. Jack pulled Lyra into a deep pit under the rubble. They pressed themselves against the cold ground, barely breathing. The hunter moved past them, searching, its red eyes scanning the ruins. Jack waited. Seconds stretched into minutes. Then, slowly, the hunter moved away, its heavy footsteps fading into the distance. Jack let out a slow breath. They were safe, for now. "We can't stay here," Lyra whispered. "More will come." Jack nodded. "We need to find somewhere better to hide, somewhere deeper." Lyra hesitated. Then she said, "I know a place, but it's dangerous." Jack gave a small, grim smile. Everything here is dangerous. They moved carefully through the ruins, staying low, avoiding open spaces. Jack's body ached, but he pushed on. He couldn't afford weakness. Not here. As they moved, Jack noticed something strange. Symbols. Old, faded symbols carved into the walls of the ruins. Spirals, eyes, stars. They were everywhere, hidden in plain sight. "What are these?" he asked. Lyra looked at them and her face grew pale. "Ancient marks," she said. "Before the conquerors, before the wars." "What do they mean?" "Warning," Lyra whispered. "They mean danger ahead." Jack didn't like the sound of that, but they had no choice. They followed the hidden path through the ruins. The deeper they went, the darker the world became. The air grew colder. The ground shook under their feet, like something massive moved deep below the surface. Then they found it. A door. Tall and made of black stone, covered in the ancient symbols. It stood alone in the middle of a broken courtyard, untouched by time. Lyra stepped forward carefully. "This is the old way," she said. "A place of secrets." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. Every instinct screamed at him to turn back, but he knew there was no turning back. He placed his hand on the door. It was warm. Suddenly, the symbols on the door glowed softly, pulsing like a heartbeat. The ground shook harder. A deep rumbling noise came from beneath. "What's happening?" Jack asked. Stepping back, Lyra's eyes were wide with fear. "The door is waking up." With a loud crack, the door split open. Behind it was darkness. Thick, heavy darkness that seemed to breathe. Jack looked at Lyra. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "No," she said. "But it's the only way." Together they stepped into the blackness. The door slammed shut behind them with a thunderous boom, and the shadows swallowed them whole. The forgotten city. The darkness inside the door was complete. Jack could not see his own hand in front of his face. The air was heavy and thick, pressing down on him like a great weight. Each step he took echoed into the emptiness, swallowed by unseen walls. Lyra stayed close, her hand gripping his tightly. He could feel her tremble, not from fear of him, but from something far older, something that lived in this place. "Where are we?" Jack whispered. "The city of the first ones," Lyra said. "It was lost long before my people were born." Their footsteps carried them forward, deeper into the black. After a while, a faint light appeared ahead, a soft blue glow, like moonlight trapped underwater. They moved toward it carefully. Soon, the tunnel opened into a vast chamber. Jack stopped, stunned. Before him lay a city, hidden underground, untouched by time. Tall towers made of crystal and stone rose high into the dark ceiling. Silver rivers flowed through the streets, glowing faintly. Strange plants with luminous leaves grew along the edges, casting soft lights everywhere. It was beautiful and dead. No sounds, no movement, just the endless empty city under the ground. "This is..." Jack could not find the words. Lyra's face was full of sadness. "This was once the heart of knowledge. The first ones built wonders here. They could bend light, move mountains, heal any wound." Jack looked around amazed, but his soldier's mind stayed sharp. Beauty could hide danger. "Why was it abandoned?" he asked. Lyra hesitated. "They vanished," she said simply. "No one knows why. Maybe they destroyed themselves. Maybe something worse took them." Jack didn't like the sound of that. They moved carefully through the empty streets. Jack kept his broken metal rod ready. Even if this place seemed dead, he knew better than to trust it. After a while, they reached a large building at the center of the city. It looked like a temple, its doors made of shining black stone. Ancient symbols covered the walls, twisting and turning like living things. Lyra studied the symbols, her brow furrowed. "This is a place of voices," she said. "A place where the first one spoke to the stars." Jack's heart quickened. "Communication?" he asked. Can we call Earth from here? Maybe, Lyra said, if it still works. They pushed the heavy doors open with great effort. Inside was a vast hall filled with strange machines and broken screens. The walls pulsed softly with a blue light, like a heartbeat. In the center stood a tall pillar of crystal, humming quietly. Jack approached it slowly. As he touched it, the room came alive. Lights flickered on. Holograms appeared, showing images of worlds spinning in the darkness of space. Voices whispered from the walls in a language Jack did not understand. Lyra stepped forward, her hands moving over the controls. The machines responded to her touch, as if they recognized her blood. I can find a way, she said. Give me time. Jack nodded. He stood guard while Lyra worked, scanning the shadows for any sign of movement. But something else was waking up. He felt it first. A low vibration under, his boots like something huge moving far below. Then the ground shook. Lyra, Jack shouted. The machines around them sparked and died. The crystal pillar cracked, sending shards of light flying. From the far end of the hall, a huge shape moved. Jack stared, his mouth dry. It was not alive. It was a machine, a guardian. The creature towered over them, its body made of dark metal and burning blue lights. It had no face, only a smooth mask with a single glowing eye in the center. Its arms ended in massive blades, and it was waking up. Lyra screamed, "It thinks we are invaders!" The guardian let out a deep, grinding roar, shaking dust from the ceiling. Jack grabbed Lyra's hand. "Run!" They sprinted toward the door as the guardian moved with shocking speed, crashing through pillars like they were made of paper. The whole building trembled under its fury. Jack led Lyra through the twisted streets of the Forgotten City. Behind them, the guardian chased, destroying everything in its path. "This way," Lyra cried, pulling him toward a narrow alley. They slipped through just as the guardian swung a massive blade, slicing the air where Jack had been seconds before. They ran deeper into the ruins, heartbeats loud in their ears. Jack knew they couldn't outrun it forever. They needed a plan. He spotted a broken bridge ahead, hanging over a deep chasm. An idea formed in his mind. "We lure it to the bridge," he said. "Make it fall." Lyra nodded, understanding instantly. They crossed the fragile bridge quickly. Jack stopped halfway and shouted, waving his arms. The guardian saw him and charged. The bridge groaned under the weight. At the last second, Jack and Lyra jumped to the other side. The guardian was not so lucky. The bridge snapped with a deafening crash. The machine fell into the darkness below, its roar fading into nothing. Jack lay on the ground, gasping for breath. Lyra crawled to his side, her eyes wide with fear and wonder. "You did it," she said. Jack shook his head. "No," he said. "We survived." "That's not the same." He looked around the ruins of the city. The Forgotten City had saved them, for now. But Jack knew this was only the beginning. Far, far away, deep under the broken world, something else had heard the Guardians fall. Something older, something worse. The real enemy was still waiting, and it was waking up. Secrets of the slave Jack and Lyra moved through the ruins in silence. The fall of the Guardian had shaken the ground for miles. Now, the Forgotten City was eerily still. No wind, no sound, just the heavy feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. Jack could feel it. The world was holding its breath. He checked their supplies, almost nothing left. His armor was broken. His body hurt with every step. And yet somehow, he felt stronger. Every battle sharpened him. Every danger made him harder to break. Lyra walked beside him, her chained hands held close to her chest. Jack noticed she seemed different now, quieter, heavier, as if carrying a weight he could not see. They found shelter inside a small building, its roof mostly collapsed, but its walls still strong. Jack built a small fire from broken wood and scraps. The soft glow warmed the space and pushed back the cold darkness. Lyra sat across from him, her face half hidden in shadow. For a long time, neither spoke. Then Jack said, "You're not telling me everything." Lyra looked up, her eyes reflecting the firelight like twin stars. He continued, voice calm but firm. You knew about the Guardian. You knew how to wake the machines. You knew how to read the old symbols. You're not just some slave, are you? Lyra closed her eyes. A single tear slipped down her cheek. I was born in chains, she said softly, but I was never meant to be a slave. Jack waited. I am the last of the Celestials, she whispered. My people ruled this world once. Before the conquerors came, before everything fell into dust. Jack stared at her, heart beating faster. Then why were you a prisoner? He asked. Lyra's voice grew bitter. Betrayal. When the conquerors came, many of my people chose to kneel. They gave up freedom for survival. They betrayed the old blood. My family resisted. We fought. We lost. She touched the metal cuffs on her wrists. These were put on me by my own kind. Jack felt a cold anger burn inside him. Not at Lyra, but at the injustice of it all. They feared you, he said. Lyra nodded. Because I carry the old power. The same power that built this city. The same power that can destroy it. Jack leaned forward. Can you still use it? Lyra looked at her hands. Some of it. Not all. The chains suppress my strength. But even broken, I am still dangerous. A long silence followed. Jack stared into the fire, thinking. Lyra was not just a helpless survivor. She was a key, maybe the only key to surviving this broken world, and maybe to ending it. But he also saw the pain in her, the fear, the loneliness. Jack spoke carefully, choosing each word like a soldier choosing where to step in a minefield. I don't care about your blood, he said, or your power. He looked directly into her glowing eyes. I care about what you choose to do with it. Lyra's lips trembled. She bowed her head, hiding her face. For the first time, Jack saw her not as a symbol, not as a mystery, but as a person. Wounded, strong, and desperately trying to survive. The fire cracked softly between them. Suddenly, a loud thud shook the ground. Jack was on his feet in an instant, metal rod ready. Lyra stood too, her chains rattling softly. Another thud. Closer, then a third, heavier than before. Something massive was moving outside. Jack moved to the edge of the broken wall and peeked out. His heart froze. Coming down the ruined street was a beast unlike anything he had ever seen. It had 6 legs, each as thick as tree trunks. Its body was covered in black armor and huge spikes jutted from its back. 3 glowing eyes burned in its head like molten lava. On its back rode a figure, armored in dark metal, holding a long spear, its face hidden behind a cruel mask. Jack whispered, They found us. Lyra grabbed his arm. We cannot fight that, she said. Not like this. Jack agreed. Fighting was suicide. They had to run. But where? The beast sniffed the air, snorting smoke from its nostrils. The rider scanned the ruin slowly. They had only seconds. Jack looked at Lyra. Can you trust me? He asked. Lyra hesitated. Then she nodded. Then do exactly what I say. They moved quickly, slipping through a hole in the back wall. Jack led them through the narrow alleys, staying low, using every shadow as a shield. Behind them, the beast roared, shaking the city. The chase was on. They ran through the maze of the forgotten city, the ground trembling under the beast's heavy steps. Jack knew they couldn't outrun it forever. They needed a weapon, a real one. They needed the power hidden in Lyra's blood. Can you break the chains? Jack asked as they ran. Not alone, Lyra panted. I need a source, a spark. Jack remembered the crystal pillars back in the temple, the way they hummed when touched. If they could reach one of the undamaged pillars, maybe she could recharge her power. Maybe they had a chance. If they survived that long, they burst into a large open plaza where several crystal pillars stood glowing faintly. But the beast was right behind them. Jack turned, planting his feet. No, more running, he said. He handed Lyra the broken metal rod. Use this. Channel through it. Find your spark. Lyra's hands shook as she took the rod. The beast roared, charging forward, its rider raising the spear. Jack stepped between Lyra and the monster, ready to face death. But Lyra lifted the rod, her eyes blazing. A sound filled the air. A deep, rising hum. The crystals answered her call, glowing brighter and brighter. Then, with a scream that was both rage and freedom, Lyra unleashed her power. A blast of blue light erupted from her hands, slamming into the beast. The monster howled, stumbling. The rider was thrown from the saddle, crashing to the ground. Jack moved fast. He tackled the rider, ripping the spear away. The masked figure fought back, fast and deadly. But Jack was faster. With a brutal strike, Jack smashed the rider's mask, revealing a twisted face underneath. Half human, half machine. The rider gurgled a curse and fell, silent. Jack stood, breathing hard. Behind him, Lyra collapsed to her knees, exhausted. The beast lay dead, its armored body smoking. The plaza was silent again. Jack rushed to Lyra's side. "Are you okay?" he asked. She nodded weakly. The chains around her wrists were broken, shattered by the force of her power. For the first time, Lyra was truly free. Jack helped her stand. Together, they looked at the burning ruins, the broken beast, the fallen enemy, and they knew the war was far from over. This was only the beginning. Deep underground, darker things stirred, sensing the shift in power. The forgotten city was no longer sleeping. It was waking, and so was something else. Something far, far worse. The final hunt, the ruins burned under the twin suns. Jack and Lyra stood at the edge of the broken plaza, the smoke of the dead beast curling into the blood-red sky. The air was thick with the smell of ash, oil, and something darker. They had won the battle. But the war was not over. Lyra leaned against Jack, her body weak from the blast she had unleashed. Her silver-blue skin was pale, almost transparent. The broken chains hung from her wrists like dead snakes. Jack held her steady. "We need to move," he said, "before more come." Lyra nodded, but her steps were slow, dragging. Jack tightened his grip on the stolen spear he had taken from the fallen rider. It was heavy, humming with strange energy. Not human technology, not alien either. Something older, something wrong. He didn't trust it, but right now it was the only weapon he had. They moved through the ruins, heading for the high ground. Jack knew they needed a place to defend, somewhere they could make their final stand if it came to that. And it would come to that. He could feel it. The world itself seemed to pulse with danger. The shadows grew longer. The ruins whispered with unseen voices. The broken city was awake now, and it did not welcome them. As they climbed higher, Jack spotted a tall tower still standing at the center of the city. It leaned slightly to one side, its surface cracked and covered in vines. But it was strong. From there, they could see anyone coming. And maybe, just maybe, find a way to call for rescue. "There," Jack said, pointing. Lyra followed without a word. They reached the base of the tower just as the ground shook beneath their feet. A low rumble, deep and endless, rolled through the earth. Jack turned, his heart sinking. In the distance, shapes moved, hundreds of them. Creatures, machines, hunters, all marching toward the tower, led by something massive, something that made the dead beast look small. A titan. Jack could hardly believe what he was seeing. It was a monster of steel and bone, taller than any building, its body stitched together from the corpses of machines and beasts. Its eyes burned, with a sick green light, and it was coming for them. "They sent their final weapon," Lyra whispered, fear in her voice. Jack gritted his teeth. "Then we fight." They rushed into the tower. Inside, the walls were covered in strange symbols, glowing faintly. Stairs spiraled up into the darkness. Jack pushed Lyra ahead. "Go! I'll hold them as long as I can." But Lyra shook her head. "No," she said. "We fight, together." Jack hesitated. He wanted to protect her. But he knew she was right. They were stronger together. They climbed the tower, floor after floor, until they reached the top. From there, they could see the whole city, and the army coming to destroy them. Jack looked around the top floor. Broken machines, dead screens, and, at the center, a large device half buried in rubble. Lyra gasped. "A beacon," she said. "An emergency signal?" "Can you fix it?" Jack asked. Lyra's hands moved quickly over the ancient controls. "I can try, but it needs time." Jack nodded. He turned to face the stairway. Already he could hear the enemy climbing up, metal feet clanging against stone. He gripped the stolen spear tighter. Time. All they needed was time. He stood at the entrance, ready. The first enemy appeared. A hunter, its body twisted and sharp. Jack moved fast, striking hard. The spear sliced through the creature, sending it tumbling down the stairs. More followed. Jack fought like a man possessed. He was faster, stronger than ever before. Every muscle burned. Every breath was pain. But he did not stop. Lyra worked behind him, her hands flying over the controls. Sparks flew from the beacon. Lights flickered. Jack took a deep cut to his arm but pushed on. The Titan roared outside, shaking the tower. The building cracked and groaned. Stones fell from the ceiling. Jack knew the tower would not hold forever. He shouted over the noise. "How much longer?" "Almost," Lyra cried. Another wave of enemies rushed the stairs. Jack fought them back, every strike powered by pure will. He fought for Earth. He fought for Lyra. He fought because there was no other choice. Then, with a loud hum, the beacon flared. To life, a beam of white light shot into the sky, piercing the red clouds. Lyra screamed, "It's done! They will hear us!" Jack smiled grimly, but the tower shook violently. Outside, the Titan reached the base of the tower, slamming its massive fists into the stone. Cracks raced up the walls. The tower was falling. Jack grabbed Lyra's hand. "Jump!" he shouted. They ran and leapt from the edge of the collapsing tower, falling into the ruins below. Jack hit the ground hard, the breath knocked from his lungs. Pain exploded in his side, but he was alive. He turned, finding Lyra beside him, alive but hurt. The Titan roared in rage behind them, trapped under the falling tower. For now. Jack pulled Lyra to her feet. In the sky, far above, tiny lights appeared. Ships, Earth ships. They had heard the call. Jack smiled through the blood and dust. They had done it. They had survived. But deep underground, hidden even from the eyes of the broken world, something stirred, something ancient, something that had waited for the fall of the first ones, something that had finally found new prey. Jack and Lyra's journey was not over. It was only beginning. A new beginning. The Earth ships roared down through the red sky, cutting through the dark clouds like silver arrows. Jack watched them with tired eyes, his body broken, his spirit burning brighter than ever. Beside him, Lyra stood silent, her silver-blue skin marked with bruises and dust. Her glowing eyes reflected the lights of the rescue fleet above. They had survived the final hunt. They had done the impossible. The wind whipped around them, carrying the ashes of the fallen city into the endless sky. Ruins stretched out in every direction, silent, broken, full of old ghosts. Jack knew he should feel relief. He should feel victory. But all he felt was a deep, heavy tension, because deep down he knew the real war had not even started yet. The ground still pulsed under his boots. Somewhere, beneath the ruined towers and crushed machines, something ancient had awakened. Something that even the conquerors had feared, and it was watching him, waiting. The first shuttle landed nearby with a heavy thud, kicking up dust and rubble. The hatch opened and soldiers in shining armor poured out, weapons ready. Jack raised a hand weakly. They saw him. They rushed forward, shouting orders, securing the area. A medic grabbed his arm, checking his injuries. "We got you, sir," the medic said. "You're safe now." Safe. The word sounded hollow. Jack looked at Lyra. She was not safe. Not really. None of them were. The medic spoke into a communicator. "Package secured. Prepare for extraction." Jack pulled away from the medic gently and walked to Lyra. She looked at him with a strange expression, hope and sadness mixed together. "They will fear me," she said quietly. Jack shook his head. "They will understand," he said, "because I'll make them." For a moment they simply stood together, two survivors at the end of a dead world. Then, more ships landed. More soldiers spread out. They found the ruins of the Titan, buried under the fallen tower. Teams moved quickly to secure the area, scanning the wreckage. Jack caught fragments of their reports over the radios. Strange energy readings, unknown tech signatures, recommend quarantine. He knew what they were sensing. The old power, the first ones, and the things still sleeping beneath. The commander of the operation, a tall, grim woman in black armor, approached Jack. "Sergeant Jack Carter," she said sharply. "You've caused quite a storm." Jack smiled grimly. "Wasn't exactly a vacation." The commander's gaze shifted to Lyra. "And who's this?" Jack's voice was steady. "She's under my protection." The commander frowned but nodded. "Fine. Get them aboard." Jack and Lyra were led into the shuttle. As the doors closed behind them, Jack looked out one last time at the chaos, broken world. It was not a goodbye. It was a promise. The journey back to Earth took weeks. During the long trip, Jack healed slowly, his body stitched together by medics, his mind haunted by what he had seen. Lyra stayed close, but apart. The crew whispered about her behind closed doors. Some called her a miracle, some called her a threat. Jack didn't care. He knew the truth. She was both. Earth had changed since he had left. New wars, new fears. But nothing that Earth had faced could prepare it for what was coming. Jack sat in a quiet observation room one night, staring at the stars. Lyra entered silently and sat beside him. For a long time they said nothing. Then Jack spoke. "They think we're heroes," he said. Lyra's lips curved in a sad smile. "They don't know the real danger," she said. Jack nodded. "We do." They watched the stars together, silent, waiting, planning. Because deep in the void, across the ruined galaxies, something stirred. The conquerors who had destroyed Lyra's people were only servants. The true masters, the real enemy, was awakening. And it had seen Jack, it had seen Lyra, and it was coming. Not for revenge, not for conquest, but for something far, far worse. Jack closed his eyes. He was no longer just a soldier. He was the first line of defense for a planet that had no idea what horrors were already on their way. He had been broken, tested, burned. But he had survived. He had found Lyra. He had found purpose. And when the darkness came for Earth, Jack Carter would be ready. He would fight. He would protect. He would rise. Because in the end, there were only two kinds of beings in the galaxy, those who bow and those who stand. And Jack had never been good at bowing, not to kings, not to monsters, not to gods. He opened his eyes, filled with the fire of 1,000 battles. Beside him, Lyra's hand found his. Together they watched the stars fall like rain. The war was coming and they would meet it standing.